What's up, guys? Wanted to talk about, and actually it's a common subject, but it's why people start jiu-jitsu, and to not forget that as instructors and coaches, we can get very caught up into certain aspects as to why people join Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes. They could be in hopes of fighting MMA. They could just be looking for some fat loss and their buddy invited them to class. They could be have been sexually assaulted, raped, abused in some way like that. They could have been, I've met guys that have been in knife fights. I've met guys that have been jumped. I've met women that have been assaulted. I've met all walks of life. Then there's police officers and nurses and people who want to restrain people or need to restrain people for their profession. There's so many different reasons that people start jiu-jitsu. Some people, and very, very, very few. So teaching for a long time, having started in the 90s in jiu-jitsu, the amount of people that start to actually for medal chasing is to start that way is very, very, very low. People actually join for self-defense is the highest thing that I think that people, in my experience, that people join for. It's why I joined for. It's what a lot of people started a martial art, but especially Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and that is to learn how to defend themselves. You don't want to lose sight of that, and I think it's very important. I think it's important when people walk in the door the first day and meet you. I think it's important when you have your first demonstration. Sometimes people do a demonstration as to how jiu-jitsu is a good martial art. They're like Gracies and Machados, they would have people hold them down and mount, for example, and say, I can escape mount, or you can't hold me in mount. I'll show you that you can't hold me in mount, which is smart because, it's not like you can do that to an NCAA wrestling champion, right? You can't sweep one maybe in under a minute, but you can foot fight and escape mount real quick. But there's also different positions that you can show people, females that have been attacked, and not always on them, but as a demonstration as to how they can defend themselves. I've done a lot of different demonstrations myself. I talk to people and ask them, why did you join jiu-jitsu? What sparked your interest? I know that you may have Googled, but why? Usually there's some kind of incident, something happened, someone's been bullied, someone needs to get their energy out. Parents and kids have a varying reason compared, obviously, to adults, but everybody wants to know how to defend themselves. So that being said, the white to blue belt path is not about tournaments. Even in the training of the basics and intermediates, all level classes, even some of the advanced, I don't really differ my training that week unless it's like a world's camp or something like that. We continue to train what we train on our curriculum, and it continues to flow. And one of the important things is that in the basics classes we have to do some of the techniques that are self-defense based more than what we do in later on some of the other jiu-jitsu ranks, because people tend to fight people who have jiu-jitsu body language at the higher rank. It's like a purple belt is grappling with another purple belt. It's not the same thing as a purple belt grappling with a day one white belt or someone training for self-defense. So learning that and knowing that when people come in, it's definitely sometimes a sensitive situation that you have to watch out for. Some people can get turned on or off to jiu-jitsu very quickly based on what that first initial manager or teacher or whoever is talking to that person, especially face-to-face, when it gets past the text or Google or whatever kind of advertising you're doing. When it gets to that face-to-face, it's a sensitive subject for some people, I think, sometimes, It's also a reason why I highly believe that you must have strike-based jiu-jitsu. If you don't have any strike-based jiu-jitsu, if you cannot survive, and not just survive, but win a fight just with Brazilian jiu-jitsu, not having to take a Muay Thai class and boxing class, which is great, don't get me wrong. I've taught that, I've trained that, I believe in that. My kids will do that, but there's a point where if you're just doing jiu-jitsu, someone should be able to defend themselves from strikes in different positions and deal with strikes in a fight, and being able to restrain someone. They can restrain a drunk buddy at a party, a Super Bowl party. I mean, there's a million different things that you need to do that for. But if you're just medal chasing, if you're just, I just want to win medals, or if you alter your curriculum that's for the white belts every time that there's a tournament that comes around, and you compete every month, then that white belt really loses out on learning how to defend themselves. I think it's important that in the very beginning, especially, that you learn strike-based jiu-jitsu, and you're conscious that people are coming in with some kind of reason that they're training the martial art. And in my experience, and most other instructors, all the ones that I know, the reason that people start is because of the reason for self-defense. And so when they come in, they don't need medal chasing right away. They need strike-based jiu-jitsu to learn how to defend themselves, or to also feel confident in defending themselves in an altercation. But maybe that incident doesn't happen in their head. Some people have PTSD from different things that they started jiu-jitsu for. If they're traumatized by something, they're gonna feel better if they know how to combat that actual situation. And if your jiu-jitsu instruction can't survive a street fight, then there's something that has to change there, in my opinion. You have to be able to survive a street fight, and not just off of medal chasing jiu-jitsu. You have to actually train strike-based jiu-jitsu. That just means you have to block and turn it into an overhook. You have to learn certain positions. You can't just sit there. You're going to get hit. I mean, like, you have to learn how to clinch in certain positions. Breaking posture is far more important to people that are in a strike-based jiu-jitsu situation than the people who don't care about strikes. There's the posture breaking is just a completely different world. So it's just my personal opinion. I think that you should teach strike-based jiu-jitsu in the beginning, and it should always be a mindset, no matter if you want to go play worm guard and all that kind of stuff later on, and you want to play, any style of jiu-jitsu. I'm not calling out worm guard at all. I love worm guard and reverse delta worm and all that good stuff. I'm just using it as an advanced technique example, that isn't a strike-based technique, but it's later on in jiu-jitsu to combat jiu-jitsu.